about the coronation?
Yes.
Why not?
Right. That was a unison nodding going. As soon as I said that, it was like...
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday Roast. We have a wonderful guest with us once again. We'll start with Emma. Emma, can you tell us a little bit about yourself for people who may be unfamiliar with you?
Yeah, my name is Emma. I have a channel which is just Emma Thorne, and I dip into all sorts of things, a little bit of politics, religion, sort of world news. Yeah, I am a very broad channel, and I like nattering about things, which hopefully will be good today.
Very good. Thank you so much. Great to have you on. Daily Blase, you're an old friend of the show. Can you tell us a bit about yourself for whoever doesn't know you yet?
Well, hello, I'm Daily Blase, and I have a channel where I go deep diving into select committee meetings and chuckle away at Tory ministers making absolute idiots of themselves, and then maybe wander into the bear pit of House of Commons, watch Suella Braverman or anybody else tie themselves in knots, and make a video, shut them up, and have a good giggle.
Fantastic. Alex, can you tell us a bit about yourself for anyone who's new to the show?
Hi, I'm Alex, also known as Political X. I have my own YouTube channel, and I'm generally a historian, if I was to lean in any direction. And my magnificent co-host, Max.
Thanks, Alex. My name is Max. I run the Robespierre channel where I talk about British politics and Brexit in particular. Alex, what's our first topic for today's show?
Shall we talk about committees and the Brexit inquiry, sort of link it all together? Because it seems like they've been put through the ringer on a lot of this week. I mean, they've been put through a ringer everywhere. I mean, we were talking just before we came on about Marina putting them through the ringer.
You think you know better than the British people?
I think you lied to people and they believed you.
I think the British people are more intelligent than that. The British people weighed up Brexit.
Are you telling me they should have known you were a liar?
They've been put through the ringer in a couple of committees on policing.
So there are no problems then in the police force? Is that what you're saying to me? It's only challenges?
I didn't say that either.
Well, my question to you was, what were the problems?
That's right.
So there are no problems. Is that what you're saying to me?
I didn't say that either.
What are you saying?
They're put through the ringer on question time on housing.
You had a very... I know we like facts on this programme, Rachel, very much we like facts. By all means, let's hear your facts, of course. Okay, the Labour governments, they built the lowest number of houses since the 1920s. Labour in Wales last year built just 5,000 houses, Labour-run Wales.
Rachel, let her finish and then you can
We have now got house building up to its highest record. We had something like 240,000 houses built last year. It has taken us this long to recover from Labour's financial crash. I think Lisa's incredibly naive when she says it should be fixed tomorrow.
I'm sorry.
She demonstrates
you can't talk about financial crashes when you had
complete lack of understanding of how the housing market works. Right. This is long-term infrastructure planning.
Wow, they've been hit quite hard. What are your thoughts, Darren, on all of this so far with the committees?
Well, did you watch the Brexit one in Westminster Hall? Spare a thought for poor Leo Doherty, because he was given the task of selling the absolute skipfire that is Brexit, with wonderful power phrases of low tax, high skilled and work and this and that, and we are doing fantastic, and just ignore the fact that our economy is going lower than Russia, because in 200 years' time we'll be powering through the world like a buccaneering pirates as we are, and all that. And you just think that everybody who's higher than him will have looked at that as no, I'm not going in there. I'm going to get pulverised.
Of course, there have been choppy waters in recent times. I haven't denied that. But my proposition is that take it in the round.
Just give it to Leo. He'll do anything, even with his weird sideburns, and he got absolutely rinsed. And Fleur Anderson got him into an absolute belt. He's just talking about all these people wanting to come here because of our low tax and high drive and
like AstraZeneca.
Yes, and then she pulled up and says, "Will you give way?" She talked about all these people who were just leaving in droves, going to Europe and all that. And his first words were, "Well, I never said it wasn't going to be choppy waters." And you think, what? It's not what you said during the Brexit campaign. You said countries will be falling over themselves to do fantastic free trade deals with us because we're British and we are great. And so you had other people like John Nicholson, Stella Creasy, Caroline, get the T thing, Caroline Lucas. Yes, I managed to say it. They were all just brilliant. They just poked and prodded holes into this nonsense that is Brexit. And yeah, like you just say, wherever they go, I always have a little look around for select committee meetings, see which Tory MPs up in front. I think, ooh, that'll be interesting. And it's usually is quite fun. I pick out the juicy bits. But yeah, that Brexit one was just hilariously funny, watching him try and sell it for what it actually isn't, I suppose, because it's not this.
Can I just say, I think my only criticism of this was that on the Remain side, you had big names like Caroline Lucas and others and John McNichols, but you didn't, like, on the defenders of Brexit, where was Boris Johnson? Where was Jacob Rees-Mogg? Where was Nigel Farage? Why Farage, of course, isn't an MP, but why were there no real Brexiteers that people have heard about? Daniel Hannan could have came over from the House of Lords and defended Brexit. Where were these people? Like there was a guy. I did a video on him. I've already forgotten his name. That's how prominent of a Brexiteer he was. So it would have been nice to see people like at least Jacob Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson, because they were leading the charge on Brexit. Why weren't they defending it, saying, well, these are the benefits? Like one of the guys who was responding that I did a video on, he came down to sovereignty. It's a bit like religion once again.
Yeah.
Darren, you're a Bradford City football supporter, aren't you?
Yeah.
Is the reason you're not winning the Champions League because the fans don't believe enough?
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, we just don't believe, not like me, like if I took my camera off and show you all the pictures that we've got of Bradford City, and well, they should believe we have the EFL League 2 top scorer. Manchester City's got all these exotic names. Ours is Andy Cook, no messing, beast of a man, no messing, Geordie, and he talks utter nonsense as well, but he knows where the goal is.
Emma, what are your thoughts on all of this so far?
I can't. The Brexit, I can't cope. There's no... I feel like we exist in this floaty world of hypotheticals whenever we talk about Brexit, and it just makes me uneasy. It's so hard to find a conversation around Brexit about what has happened, what is actually going to happen, which is obviously supposed to be the point of an inquiry. It's just I can't remember. I saw some MP saying, like, in the distant future, this is going to be absolutely fantastic. We're excuse me, we're almost certainly going to get this, that, and the other trade deal. And I thought, it's just made up. It's just all hypotheticals. I think the thing was it something like, I misremember the number, or something like people are angry because the EU laws that we were going to overturn or replace, so it was like 4,000 EU laws will still be in place that Brexit was supposed to, overturn. And it's just, I don't know what we're getting out of Brexit. To make my position too obvious.
It's interesting because Leda Moran came out and defended the fact that these laws that are about to be bonfired, but there's 2 points. Leda Moran came out and said, oh, but we were in the committee meetings. We were leading a lot of these pieces of legislation through. We were the ones that were voting in the parliament to get these laws through to make the EU better. So we had sovereignty inside of that. So there's an element of that, and now that essentially a lot of our businesses are just going, we've got to follow what the EU are saying, and then in order to sell over there. But then I think it came out yesterday in a couple of I think the Express and the Evening Standard came out and said only 1 in 5 of those laws are going to be burned. And so there's now another pushback against all of this.
Yeah, so the Brexiteers wanted to get rid of about 4,000 laws, but we never actually were shown what these laws are. Nobody ever said, here is a list of the 4,000 laws we're going to get rid of. And then the problem is that if you get rid of a law, you have to replace it with another. But they weren't actually going to replace some of them. So they're saying, we're going to get rid of these laws. And then you go, okay, well, for example, if it's employment rights. So can I employ this person? Or what are their rights? Well, we don't know because we got rid of the law. So then how do you actually realize it, whether it's enforceable or not, or whether you're breaking the law? Then you have to go to court. So you can imagine companies constantly going to court to try and find out, is this legal or is it not? Because it would rely on judge in a court to decide whether this is legal or not, and it would just clog up the courts. It was insane. It was like, just imagine tomorrow you start from scratch and you have no laws or anything like that. Imagine a society where you just say, tomorrow we have no laws. And I say, okay, I'm going to come to your house and steal your stuff. You can't do that. That's against the law. Well, show me the law. Well, the laws are gone. So it's a bit infantile, the analogy, but it's pretty much like that. That's what they were trying to do. And whoever, the business lobbies or whatever, were probably replying to the government saying, you can't do this. This is insane. So they decided, okay, let's water it down. And probably what they're going to do is they're going to push this bill through the House of Commons, but they're going to get rid of laws that are obsolete. So they'll be probably getting rid of about 10 or 20 laws that are already obsolete. And then they'll do a victory lap of saying, look, we succeeded, we won. See, we got a Brexit benefit. We got rid of all these laws that are these dirty EU laws that we don't want anymore, which would have
we made.
We were part of the
that we made.
Yeah, exactly. But they're obsolete, but we're going to get rid of them, and then they'll do it because it's all about show. It's like the trade deals. The trade deals are not worth the paper they're written on, but it's about something to say. Look, we've succeeded. See, Brexit is a success. It's just about showing people that it's succeeding, not actually it's succeeding. Convincing. Yeah.
There was an amazing bit with the Marina Purkis interview where Mog turns around and says, Marina said, when are we going to get these benefits? And Mog goes, they're in the pipeline. Look at the CPTPP toilet paper agreement. That's what I'm calling it, by the way, because it's the equivalent in value of toilet paper. And he said it's in the pipeline. And you're going, wow, fuck it. He said it was going to be instantaneous. I was thinking, so I don't know why, but the Super Mario pipeline, you know how that was meant to be like quick.
Yeah.
And now he's saying, it's further on. And it's as you're all saying, 200 years, 1,000 years. It'll get there. I've got Emma, as you're the youngest in the group. I hope that's an appropriate term to bring up. I believe you were able to vote for the Brexit referendum. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
And within that, I mean, do you feel as if your generation have lost more than anyone else, or do you feel as if you were able to experience some of the benefits of the EU? Because we're talking about this with no justice and how the younger generation are going to be looking back at this and sort of going, wait, we've lost. We didn't get a chance to experience all these benefits.
I feel like I just sort of, my specific generation got to experience the beauty of free travel and especially because, I did a uni and got to meet people through things like the Erasmus scheme and things like that were all, these various international schemes and ETU schemes. So I got to experience that enough to see that be taken away from the next generation of students and things. I feel a bit bitter on behalf of my peers, especially my slightly younger peers, and there's an element of we're the no money generation, right? We got to see our elders take holidays and do things like this and all whatever, and now we're sort of finally getting to the age where we can afford some little bits of travel, and now we can't move freely throughout the EU, and it's there's an element of bitterness, but I mostly sort of feel for especially students, because I got to see so many benefits from, international exchanges and things that were just, I mean, I can't, my master's degree, there would have been about 2 of us if there hadn't been international programs, if it hadn't been so easy for that to be a thing. And yeah, it's depressing. I wonder what the next, well, and then you combine with COVID, I wonder what the next sort of intake of students in universities is going to look like. I feel like probably a bit bland.
It's knackered. The university programs are being hammered left, right, and centre, as well as the tourist industry. I look at Oxford and Cambridge, and those are the 2 bread and butter economic policies: get the tourists in and get the students in to keep the economies running. You go through Oxford city centre now, it's knackered. Like last time I was there, and to be fair, that was about 6 months ago, I'd say a third to half the shops were empty. That's historically abnormal for Oxford. Historically, Oxford is quite recession-proof if you want work and everything else, because they always had an influx of international students. A lot of rich students would always come over and splurge cash left, right, and centre. So it seemed to avoid that. And of course, tourism. Brexit has nailed that. I think the Oxford and Cambridge came out a couple of weeks ago and said that they'd lost 500 million in grants and funding for science projects between them. How do you recover? Darren, I can see you looking very upset about all of this.
No, because I do. Because I don't know how old you are, Emma, but my youngest daughter's actually probably around your age as well, and I've got two other sons older, and I always say to them, just let you know that I didn't vote for this. I didn't vote. And I feel sorry for you guys, because you'll be paying for this mess, and so will your children as well, if you have any. And all of them look at me and just say, children? No, I don't think so. And I do feel sorry for. Yeah. I do feel so sorry for the young, because they've had their opportunities taken away, and they'll have to pay for this absolute skip fire for probably at least couple of generations, probably even more. And I see, when people watch what I do, one of my favourite ones was with the International Select Committee meetings, where my favourite was Angus Brandon McNeill. He was just absolute chair of it. It was just absolutely brilliant. He would tie. It was, if it wasn't Kemi Badenoch, it was Liz Truss. And let's be honest, Liz Truss, it wasn't hard to tie her in knots, but because and he's there because his analogies absolutely brilliant, because when he's talking about how much you're gaining from these international trade deals is puny compared to what you're losing. His analogies, if you went to the horse races with 500 quid and you came back with 10 quid, would you say that's a good day? And and their usual thing is to say, well, we're not going down that route of opening the Brexit referendum. So I'm not asking you that. I'm not asking. And you're basically going on about the referendum. We're thinking ahead. Where you're looking at figures that have actually happened, while we're dreaming of figures that might happen in 50, 100, 200 years' time. You just think, really? So, right, you just got to ignore it.
It was a democratic choice.
Yeah,
that's the line.
Absolutely, Emma. Yeah.
That's a democratic choice based on a campaign of misinformation. We're not going to talk about that. The people voted for it.
Vote Leave have admitted, I think, in their interviews today that they were involved in moving that money to Believe, but their claim is that it was then in the control of Believe. according to the rules.
Yeah, but if you actually look at the three binders of evidence that we've provided to the Electoral Commission, any reasonable person looking at that, including apparently the Electoral Commission itself, would disagree, because what is clearly apparent is Believe was asking for permission, was asking for advice, was essentially a subsidiary of Vote Leave. And the reason that's important, for people to understand, is because that means that Believe was a vehicle to break the law. It was a vehicle to overspend by as much as 10%. And when you look at a referendum that was won by 2%, and you've got the main campaign overspending by upwards of 10% against the law, there's a real question about whether that's fair. And in sport, when you cheat, you get disqualified. You lose your medal, you lose your trophy. And what Vote Leave is now saying is, essentially, we want to keep the Brexit trophy, even though we cheated.
51% of the people voted for it, so shut up, leave us alone.
Which is the point that if it's a democratic, it was a democratic vote, deeply flawed, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt here. Well, then, if a majority of people want to rejoin, then you should be supporting a referendum to rejoin, no? Because it's more democracy. Like, what's the best way to deal with democracy is more democracy. So I find it really strange how Nigel Farage and others are now saying, well, look, it seems the majority of people want to rejoin the EU, then let's have a campaign because we love democracy so much. No, they're like, no, we had a vote, that's it, it's finished.
Like as he said on the night, if the result is 52-48, I would view that as unfinished business, i.e. if he'd have lost. Do you think he'd have walked off into the sunset? Well, the majority have spoken. It's the will of the people, and I'm going to go quietly into the night and get my Sean GBBs.
I'd like to see him walk off a plank.
Yeah, I would do it all.
That's what I'd like to see him walk
Nigel, fog on of ignorance. Yeah.
had to control yourself there, didn't you? Now?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, I did. I'd have been putting £1 in swear box then.
Well, it was interesting because, there's a couple of tangents we can go on here. Housing's quite interesting because that came up. And it's interesting how Labour and the Conservatives aren't talking about that in their 10 points in total of how to resolve this issue. And yet you can see, as you clearly stated, Emma, the youth generation that are coming through are just going, can't afford kids, can't afford a house. Why aren't anyone coming to vote for us? Why aren't the youth joining us in large numbers? Because you're not providing any housing, you're not helping out with anyone's rent, you're not allowing them to have kids, you're not giving any level of support to having kids. And then on top of that, you're mainly a bunch of racists and corrupt bastards who take a lot of money off Putin.
Yeah, absolutely. See, the thing is that I'm in the fortunate position. I own my own house. I paid £32,000. Now, can you see anybody getting a house for 32 grand this time now? No, you might.
Sorry,
you might get a.
Parking space in London.
Yeah, that'll be it. Yeah. So I'm in the fortunate position where I don't have to worry about, which, as you know, Max, about my health problems. That because in 2017 I had to have a dystoptomy and it cost me my job. I worked for council for 30 years, and it was like. I could go on about the DWP, but that's for another day. And I was thinking to myself, we were just in the last year of paying for the house around that time. Now, if this were in 2017, if this had been 27, there'd have been no way I'd have been able to pay for this house. We'd have lost it. And this is my grandma and granddad's house. This is sort of like family heirloom, it's where I'll live the rest of my life in, because a picture of me as a little baby in a baby walking in front garden, and my mum were keeping in one at wardrobes when they were having the 9 kids, So and I'd have been devastated, but I feel sorry for kids nowadays because you've got no chance, and it's so sad. It's like. It's come at a point where my wife, she's got to the point now. She said, "I don't like this country anymore. If I had the choice, I'd sell up and would go off somewhere." I'd say, "But you might struggle with that with your British passport now."
But Emma, what young people just need to do is stop eating avocado
Going
and
to the
toast
gym.
And
It's
and
paying for the gym and buying
Netflix
sandwiches and coffee. That's
And avocados.
Avocados, yeah. No, we're destroying the environment with avocados now as well, or something. I'm not sure. There's such a clear problem with, the cost of living. And again, London-centric view, renting in London is absolutely appalling because half of London is just owned by moguls who own 1 million properties and jack the price up for, people who grew up in Hackney can't afford to rent in Hackney anymore. It's absurd. It used to be cheap to live in Hackney, and cost of living, and so many people just can't afford to even move out of their parents' homes and things like that. And every day there's some sort of Tory-friendly newspaper saying, well, tattoos are a luxury, and young people are always getting tattoos, so they should stop doing that, and then they'd be able to afford a house. And it's
this personal responsibility thing you see is copied from the US, where it's like, oh, if you're poor, it's your fault. It's nothing to do with the economy, or nothing to do with government policies or anything like that. Like the fact that council houses were sold, the right to buy happened back in the 80s, and then there was no replacement. There were no new council houses built, so you had a limited amount of supply. And the price just went up, and people who are paying something like 50% of their income in rent, and then they have to buy food and pay bills and whatever, and then there's nothing left over to put aside, if you can, to say, okay, I'm going to purchase a home, I'm going to buy a house in the future, because we're also with inflation that whatever, even if you could put something aside, that's going to get smaller every year. And the price of houses are going up all the time. So even if you were to put, 30% aside, by the time you actually have put a significant amount aside, the price of the house has gone up, and the deposit is no longer enough.
I mean, my partner and I are very lucky in terms of the work. I mean, we used to work at the same place in the VFX industry, and now I'm whatever. I don't want to say the word influencer. It's embarrassing. But we're like, in terms of sort of being young people, our kind of income is, it's higher than the average. And we still, the thought of being able to buy a house is sort of so out there and distant. It's something that would take an incredible amount of planning, a long time, and we've accepted we would have to move out of London to be able to do it. And my partner was born and raised in London, so it's and that's where the industry is in terms of our work and things like that. So it's if you think the average income is less than what we have, and the idea of buying a house is almost inconceivable. It's that kind of effort with, I mean, I hate this. I think America poisoning our sort of ideology here is a big part of this, but this effort equals success and just work. I mean, whenever I talk about income disparity online, somebody says, well, they should work harder. And it just infuriates me so much, because it's absolute nonsense, to pick a more polite word.
There's a historical precedent here that I'm very aware of, which was during World War I, the Americans stepped in and said to the agricultural sector, make more food, buy land, we'll give you loans, and go and produce food for Europe to feed it. World War I ends quite quickly, but of course you're still in the agricultural production process. And the government just goes, we're not going to interfere with that. We'll just let you carry on producing food at that rate. But that means you're literally producing enough food for Europe to then go into the US. So government policy has affected agricultural policy. And it then drops the price of food to the point where it's more efficient to burn corn than it is to go and get firewood. And the poverty in the countryside is horrific. I think there's there are not many deaths from starvation at that point in the US, but people are living in abject poverty because of government policy. But the government in the 20s and 30s are blaming people in the countryside for being poor, despite it being government policy that's caused the poverty. And I see no difference here. Brexit's their fault. COVID, they had no preparation for the pandemic. Zero. We've heard people say it. What we haven't seen is anyone come up and go, can you show us what the plans were, the exact plans that were in place and ready to go just before the pandemic hit? I've not heard anyone ask them that. And of course, they wouldn't be able to provide any because there weren't none. No one had put any procedures in place. And people might go, oh, a pandemic happens every so often. But they were meeting 3 times a year for the Queen's death. 3 times a year for the Queen's death, not once for a pandemic preparation, not once a year. So you go, there's their priorities. And this links in quite nicely with the coronation and class system that they've got established here. But the point is, the government going, it's not us, it's not our policies that have caused your poverty. I mean, quantitative easing, that briefly got brought up. Basically, the government, the bank printed off a load of money. If you want to, and that money, if the bank's printed it off, who are they going to give it to? Are they going to give it to poor people? Or are they going to give it to rich people? I know where the bet's going to be, and it's not going to be, you know, the average Joe on the streets. They're not going to give loans like that out. They're going to give it to the rich, and then it accumulates wealth. That's why the number of billionaires has tripled. So they've got some gall, and I hope one day one of us will get onto the screen, along with Marina, who's been on the show, and just give them the riot act, because they talk bollocks, and they create a culture war, and they blame us for their failings.
Oh, I see, it's my fault, is it? Oh, of course, there I was thinking it was your fault because you've been left in charge, or Manuel's fault for not waking you, and all the time it was my fault. Oh, it's so obvious now, I've seen the light. Well, I must be punished then, mustn't I? You're a naughty boy.
No, just like when you were talking about that interview with Marina Perkins, one thing for certain, I said my wife showed me it, and because I remember seeing a tweet saying that I'm thinking of going, and my first thought was, what's the point? He'll just view you as a pleb, and he won't take any interest, and you won't gain anything out of it. And boy, were I wrong. She just absolutely mullered him. But I said to my wife, and my kids look at him in fascination, as if to say, why do people listen to him? What's the fascination? I said, well, firstly, I said, if I said the same exactly, Max, exactly.
Now you listen to me. Now you shut up and listen to what I have to say.
Exactly.
Is that your best English accent, Max?
Yes, but yeah, I said, if I'd have said the same things in my broad Bradfordian accent, they would cart me off to the funny farm if I said the same things he said. But if I talk slow and rather posh, throw in a bit of Latin, and it's doff cap, tug forelock, you know, all right, governor, always reminds me of, I still prattle on about that book, The Ragged Trousered Philanthropist, you know, where the guy, they're making the house up, the bloke who's going to buy it, the foreman's following him around, you know, starts talking posh, and with his hand out, thinking, well, if I treat him extra nice, he might throw me a shekel, and he give him bugger all. And well, that's because in their eyes, that's not how you get rich. You stay rich by giving other people your money. And then he was surprised because he gave him the running tour of the house, and he didn't toss him any money. And just got into the carriage and off he went.
I never thought I'd bring up Downtown Abbey, but actually there's a really good comparison there, because apparently I didn't watch it. I've only read bits and pieces. And I was told that there was a scene where one of the staff had a child out of wedlock, and that the rich part of the family adopted the kid. Interestingly, where is she? Haley Rubenhold wrote a fascinating book on the victims of Jack the Ripper. And it was actually shocking to find out that a lot of those victims had actually been in middle-class homes as servants. And as soon as something went wrong, they were ejected onto the street. And alcoholism was very prevalent. And once they got hooked, they couldn't get out. But there's this thing, like, which is, this links very nicely to the coronation, with the aristocracy being this benevolent group. Go on, Max.
I just wanted to jump in because when you said about Downton Abbey, I love the show, but what I noticed about it while watching it is that it paints the aristocracy in a very positive light. They have their weird behaviors or whatever, but at the end of the show, at the end of each episode, it's like they're very positive. Very positive view. And somebody on YouTube, and I don't remember who it was, but they did a critical review of it, and they said that it was actually the book or the story itself for TV was produced by a Tory MP, and what they were trying to get across is that yes, the working class are presented in a positive way, but also the upper class are presented in a positive way. And the fact that you talked about how the family adopted an orphan in a sense, that would not happen in reality.
No.
So, but it was trying to paint the aristocracy in a very positive light, and this is part of the deference that's a huge problem. The fact that Darren said if he was to say the things that Jacob Rees-Mogg said, he'd be laughed at. But because Jacob Rees-Mogg has a posh accent, he gets away with it. Like, it'd be a very interesting experiment would be to take something that Jacob Rees-Mogg has said and repeat it to people on the street and get their reactions. And then to repeat, to dress up with a top hat and tails and then do the same thing and see the with the exact same words and see the reaction of people. And who do you respect more? The guy who's dressed well or speaks in a particular way, or somebody who should be, a peer of yours? So can we bring in Emma on this as well?
Yeah, I was just going to say there's this idea, and we mentioned earlier the increasing number of billionaires. There's this idea of benevolent philanthropy that I think is really heavily pushed to kind of uphold this idea that money is everything, and this like uber capitalist system in which one person can gain enormous power via wealth is a good thing, because sometimes the upper classes out there, they're good people and they give to charity, and there's just it kind of boils my blood a little bit, because there's no ethical way to be a billionaire. It's not possible. And I think a lot of the disconnect that we have at the moment in this country is having such a wealthy prime minister because there's no way to connect with the normal person, and that's why we have so much of this focus on I want to say, like, bottom feeder infighting. It's tax fraud, amongst, benefits fraud. It's like a big, and you have people in the working classes being charged up against people on benefits who are suffering in poverty, because it's beneficial for the leaders of our country if we're more angry at other poor people than the incredibly wealthy elite. And it's just example after example. It just makes me cross.
Marina brought that up.
No, there's a wonderful YouTuber, and I've forgotten the name already, but he done a wonderful video on the idea that there isn't a middle class, working class, and upper class. There's the owner class, and there's everyone else. And how this system is maintained is by convincing people you're middle class and your enemy is the working class. And if you're working class, your enemy is people who have nothing, like the homeless or immigrants or whoever. And if you if you continue this system, well, who is protected by it? The owner class, because they maintain, they're separated from everyone else, and they have this approach of divide and conquer.
Okay. As always, we have two drawings. First up, the draw for people with inherited wealth. You should all have a ticket at home with a number between 1 and 3 on it. So let's pick 2 balls. Fire it up. Here we go. 3. The first number is 3. Let's pick another ball. 1. Congratulations to almost everyone at home. Okay, that was fun. That was fun. Okay, so now the lottery for those who were born poor. Okay. Tank. Hello to all of you watching at home or through a Best Buy window. You should all have a card with a number between 1 and 3.5 million on it. And you've probably noticed that a disproportionate percentage of these balls are black and brown. Ignore that. It's illustrative of nothing. I can't stress that enough. Isn't that right, Tank? Yeah, that's right, yeah. Now, as you can see, for the third consecutive week, this machine is still broken, so I can't currently get a ball out of there for you. But let's all agree that technically you did all have the hypothetical chance to win. So this is depressing. Hey, remember how much fun we were having over there? Let's go back over. There's still a ball in there. Let's get that last ball out of there.
You've had the newspapers ratcheting up for decades how if you're poor and you're on universal credit, you're a scrounger. And it's like, well, don't you pay national insurance? So you're paying into an insurance scheme. So if you go out of work, the insurance covers you until you can get back into work if you can. Yeah. And it's never broached like that. It's just, oh no, they're scroungers. And then on top of that, they'll definitely go and find stories where people have abused the system, said they're ill, but they're not. But all you need is 50 people. And you can do a story a week and you make it look like it's a pandemic. It's no different to what we were saying last week with Zoe and talking about the 45,000 that fill half of Wembley. Are you telling me we can't deal with half of Wembley for all the people coming over and trying to get refugee status in the UK? It's nuts. Go on, Emma.
I was just going to say the same thing. The latest big scare was people stealing infant products, baby bottles and things like that. And, the outrage is supposed to be that people would steal these things and not the outrage that people can't afford to buy products for their children. It's completely misdirected.
They're spending it all on booze and cigarettes.
And tattoos and the gym. Yeah, of course. Yeah. iPhones, whatever.
I mean, we've gone to the Coronation. I had that when I was interviewing someone yesterday outside Buckingham Palace. They were like, don't give money to homeless because they're worried they'll go and he literally did this and this. And I'm like, wow. Like, meeting and interacting with people like that have that sort of mentality. And to be fair to the person, he said, look, I don't give him money, but I'll go and buy him food. I'll take him to Starbucks. I'll give him a coffee. I'll sit down. I'll talk with them. I'll give him food. So you're sort of like, okay, there's a balance there to be had. And you've got a outlook, which is interesting. Before I go on a tangent with that, Coronation. How's everyone? Is everyone excited?
It's going to destroy my channel because it's going to be 10 days or 2 weeks. So how long is this coronation going to go on for? Because we won't be able to talk about everything. This is the worst. It's like the Queen's funeral. Everything stops. You're not allowed to talk about anything else. Yeah. And it's weird. And this is going to be for the coronation as well. You're going to have the BBC run, for a week, how great Charles is, how great the royal family is, and there'll be no pushback. There'll be no, let's get on some Republican. Like when it came to Brexit, they were like, okay, let's have Nigel Farage on one side and we'll have an expert on the other, as if they were equals. But you won't have something like, okay, well, let's have a pro-monarchy person here and a Republican on the other side. It definitely didn't happen during the funeral. I don't see it happening during the coronation. Maybe they'll just cover a protest or something, but they won't have a critical view of it, which is a problem.
Yeah.
BBC unbiased, as they say. Go on, Darren.
Yeah, it's even affected my weekend. It's just like the last match at season is on Bank Holiday Monday at 12:30. Now, there won't be many footy fans here, but I'm a Saturday 3:00 type of guy when it comes to my football. And it's just like, go to Rose and Crown, have a couple of bevies with mates, and then go watch the football, and then go round Bradford and have a good night out. Now, but Carlisle at about 6:00, falling out of the taxi or something. That's no good. So, on Bank Holiday Monday, so because it's a bank holiday, isn't it? Because of Coronation, yeah. So I like my football on a Saturday, so it just affects everything. And I remember when Queen passed away, I was listening to radio, and then as soon as it gave news out, I went, click radio off, TV off, and I can't remember what I was doing. I think one day I just think, right off the cuff, just going to do some funny videos live stream, and a lot of people just got on it and had a good gig on this. And a lot of people said, you know what, I really needed that, because it's a bit much in it, because it was a bit much after about, I think we're about day 2, I was losing the will to live. I think, oh, God, I can't watch anything on the telly. I can't listen to anything on radio, because then, but I did see some. I can't remember his name, but he was proper took the rise out of it. Where it's come with all these. So this old voice, and there's the Queen's car, and I wonder what they'll be doing in there. Maybe reading the paper or scratching their bottoms, and
Darren, you have to feel sorry for them, because they had okay, you have 12 hours to fill. Can you imagine having to do a live stream for 12 hours and you're only allowed to talk about one thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've done it for him, but it was, it was painful, and then once it got back to normal life, it was thank God for that. I can breathe. But I certainly won't be watching King Sausage Fingers Coronation. No, not for me. Oh no, because it's like you talk about the class thing. Like last week when I was watching the Business of the House, that Penny Mordaunt and Richard Bergen saying, "Do you think it's right that the public purse should be spending £100 billion on a coronation in the time of cost of living crisis?" And she got up and said, "Well, I was waiting for that question, and there was little surprise that it's come from somebody like you."
I'm holding my tongue. I'm going to allow other people to vent before I go fucking ballistic. Sorry, Darren, go on.
Yeah, no, but yes. And it's just as if to say, yeah, I kind of figured somebody like you would say something like that, I'm proud of the Queen, got us through some difficult times during COVID, and you just think, really? This is a woman who spent her life thinking the whole world was full of smell of fresh paint. And as somebody who worked for council, whenever royalty came, it was a mass clear up. Every leaf, every thing was spick and span, and it would look like it was just absolutely bulldozed, and it looks pristine and clean. The amount of money that had been spent just for one of them to turn up. It was just...
But that's a very valid point, because when they would arrive, they would say, well, everything's great. Why are people complaining about a cost of living crisis? When I arrive, everyone is looking really well. Look at the nice clothes, and the place is clean, and, everyone's happy. What are people complaining about? We know they lived a sheltered life, but... Can we bring in Emma on that as well?
Yeah.
Well, there was, even before the Queen passed, when he was Prince Charles, there was this when he did the he took over the Queen's speech, and there was just something so farcical. I remember seeing him reading from this piece of paper, sitting on this gold-plated throne in this room, surrounded by people sort of saluting or whatever, wearing all these uniforms, just gold as far as the eye can see, and talking about the difficult time for the British people and poverty, and you're like, it's like they're from another planet.
When cousins marry?
Well, yeah, I don't want to watch the coronation. I don't want to. I'm going to Italy actually a few days after the coronation. I'm dreading just getting across London to get out of the country. It's gonna be.
I'm
awful.
actually legging it to Barcelona. I do not want to be. It angers me so much to see all this nonsense. It's a religious ceremony, so why aren't the church forking out for it? Yeah. He got the tax discount. He didn't pay any tax on inheritance. He's worth 22 billion at least.
Yeah,
that we know of.
He could say, like, look, guys, there's a cost of living crisis. I'll cover it. I have the money.
But no,
don't worry.
No. Can't do that. No. That would be wrong and improper for the king to spend money on the thing that he needs to do for himself.
But more importantly, is Hazard and Sparkles invited?
Yes and no. Because people will get angry if she is invited, and they get angry if she's not coming. So,
Andrew, you notice the silence on that?
Yeah.
That prat will be there. And it's interesting as well, because you get a lot of people, again, I've been out in the streets talking to people about it, Buckingham Palace, and you've got people going, oh, he should just stay out of it. And I go, do you think the police should investigate him? And it's like, brain can't compute. It would be so easy to figure out what the little bastard had been up to, because all you got to do is look at the security reports, and they have to have them. They have to report where the hell he's been, and to a certain extent, what he's done. And we already have an idea about what he's like, because we've had police officers on Lad Bible, of all places, telling us there is a misogynistic twat to people. And it's not that shocking. But then you look through the entire family. I mean, Diana left... This blew my mind when I brought this up with people as well. Diana left a letter saying that her husband, Charles, she was concerned that he was going to whack her in a car accident. Now, he never got brought up in court. But if there had been any of us... and our partner died in a car crash, and a letter turned up saying, I'm concerned my partner is going to whack me in a car crash, we would be hauled up by the police instantly and being put in front. We'd be put in court if there was an investigation. But it's this thing of they get an oath of allegiance by the police, an oath of allegiance by the army, and they get an oath of allegiance by the judiciary. So you're like, well, how are you accountable? And I think that's the thing that irks me the most. There's no accountability.
But this is an interesting question. Could the king be put in prison?
No.
It's a question. Like, it's a legitimate question.
Cromwell.
No, but I'm not like. But could the king break the law? Like, yes, I imagine.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if he got in his car and he broke the speed, like he drove too fast and he stole something or whatever, could he be arrested? Could he actually go to prison? I'm not talking about in a hypothetical, but in a real sense, could he actually be imprisoned? I don't know.
Cromwell
that's an interesting...
and the parliamentarians set that precedent. They had him in court, and he was arrested, and then he was executed, and that's the namesake first, Charles I.
Yeah.
So in theory, yes, because the precedent is now set.
Yeah. I've got to admit.
But could someone see Andrew going to prison? Is that an actual reality? What?
In my head, I can see it every day.
Yeah, but it's a real question. Like, if there was an investigation and it came out that he broke the law, could he actually go to prison? That's like, would he be arrested? Could the king intervene and say, actually give him a pardon or something like that? I don't know. And I think
I think that is one of their privileges, that they are able to give a pardon. But the other irony is they've got loads of castles, which are quite good for prisons.
Yeah. It just shows you how detached from reality they really are. I always remember we all remember Prince Philip, you know, his gaffes. He's known for his gaffes. I always remember this one, you know, where he's meeting all these kids at this school, you know. And, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an astronaut. Aren't you a little fat for that? You just think... And you just think, imagine if you're the parent and you're still in your little Tommy here, that you just think, oh my God, what are you going to say? You can't, like, because if you try and cost him, you're gonna get jumped on, aren't you?
Well, we saw what happened with the protests with the Queen's funeral, and we saw someone shouting at Andrew. They all got jumped.
And what I found interesting was the amount of people who were going to attack him, who were in the crowd for calling out a nonce, basically.
Did that person get charged, or did I imagine that? I think they got.
I think
they
did
criminally charged. Yeah.
And because he started shouting out, I remember seeing they all turned around ready to lamp him one. You think, and you just sometimes when you watch like you think your brain goes to mush, thinking, what are they doing? Absolute nation of doff cappers, aren't we?
But it's this cult of personality thing as well. It's like, if one of these people on the street were being called this, do they think Andrew would come to their rescue? No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't give a crap. It's the same way as like, you know, these people who are obsessed about back Boris. Boris is wonderful, but we need Boris back. Do they honestly think that Boris gives a crap about them? Of course he doesn't. Why? I really don't understand Trump mentality as well. These people who are like who've given away their life savings to buy coins with Trump's face on it, or to donate to his legal challenges. What is wrong with these people? Like, do you think that Trump gives a crap about you if you were struggling, or if you were lying on the street and you said, Donald, I helped you, you know, can you give me $1 to, you know, to buy some food? He wouldn't, you know, urinate on you if you're on fire. Like, really, I don't understand this. And it's the same with the royal family. You know, Andrew has done horrible things, and people will defend him. Why? Well, because he's Andrew. Like, if that was anyone else, you would say, no, this person should go to prison. It's like a sort of suspension of morality because of these people, because they have some sort of magic aura around them.
It's not like they haven't been full of controversy. I mean, all of them. I mean, Jimmy Savile was best mates with Charles. There is a Sarah Ferguson on the Epstein flight records, which has not been reported in the news.
Wow.
And it's on the same flight record as Prince Andrew tootling off there, and it's only once. It's only once on the flight record, and they both happen to be on the same flight record. Now, I'm not saying it is Sarah Ferguson, but there is a Sarah Ferguson on the flight record. Let me be clear on that, but I'm like, why has no one asked her? And again, it's this. It's to say, we were talking about this again last week. I've not seen a single oil producer, gas producer, representative chucked on TV and held accountable for their profits or their production of fossil fuels or high levels of carbon or poison. I've not seen a single CEO from Thames Water or any of the others that dump sewage pulled in front of the cameras to justify themselves. And we see it with this lot. I mean, Andrew came on and he did it once, and he gets hauled in front of a camera, and it's an absolute arse end of the show.
Yeah. I was just about to, when you mentioned that show, I watched. I don't know if you've ever heard of a YouTube channel called the Behavioural Panel.
Yes.
And they went through that, and they picked up on something very, very interesting about Emily Maitlis. That's it. Yeah. And they picked up on the attire that she was wearing. It was basically, I can't remember the words, but it was sort of like say that I'm not going to be intimidated by you, because he comes dressed up to the pins, and there was also, and they picked up all sorts of stuff, you know, the little looks and the blinks there, and they picked up, and you just think, I can't prove he's lying, but showing all the signs.
No, I mean, I think all of us picked that up. Didn't we?
Well, yeah. Especially the I don't sweat bit.
It's bizarre, isn't it, as an excuse to try and rescue yourself? I mean, he said about going to Pizza Express, but you're like, if you really want to show us that you weren't there, then just release all your records. But again, it never gets brought up that he's got a secret service that literally tell you exactly where he was on what date, and it must go back decades. Surely, you'd think. in terms of record keeping, because it's quite simple and not necessarily what he's going to do, but where he is at what time. But no one ever seems to bring this up as a query. Emma, any thoughts from you on this?
Oh, I'm just cross. I'm just cross now.
Look that.
Although I did. My brain sort of went when you were talking about nobody held accountable. The environmental impacts and things. It's again, it's just another example. Well, throw the little man under the bus. It's environmental protesters that are causing all our problems, and likewise with your man shouting at the funeral. It's the little guy. He's put him at the center and never ask the questions that actually matter of the people that are so revered.
There was an amazing clip of a Frenchman being put in front of a camera this week, being like, what do you think? He's a driver. I think he was driving a taxi or a private vehicle. And they said, what are your thoughts on these protesters? And he turned around and said, well, they've got the right to protest. It's an annoyance, but, we don't see us getting out of the car and yelling at other private drivers for causing the traffic jams that we have on a weekly basis. We only get out of the car to shout at the protesters who are trying to get people out of the private cars into public transport so we don't have traffic jams. Sorry, Max.
No, that's all. I've forgotten what I was going to say, so that's fine.
Oh no,
it's okay.
Sorry.
but it's a very, very valid point. We have, it's like what they're saying about the nurses or the junior doctors going on strike. Oh, the people are going to die. People are dying on a daily basis because of cuts to public health, because of corruption, because of in government, and because of the privatization that's going on. So
and Brexit.
And Brexit. So people are dying because of these things. And now, the doctors and nurses want to stop that. They want to stop the rot. And then the media will point the finger and say, oh, look, people are dying because you're on strike.
Yeah. I'm actually going down to Buckingham Palace and I'm filming and interviewing people down there at the moment, Royalists. Like one person said to me something along the lines of, there's always family drama and, it shows how real they are. And I just went, yeah, everyone's got a strange uncle, haven't they?
Yes. Yeah, you didn't. Yes. Yeah, you didn't spot Dan Watson quietly reflecting, did you?
He was a prat. And Farage. Farage got ignored, but he clearly repeatedly filmed that. Right, we've got 60 minutes. Coronation. If you were monarch for the day, what one thing would you do? Max, what's your initial thoughts?
It would be to end the monarchy.
Darren?
Throw Andrew in jail.
Emma?
Yeah, I think I'd abolish myself.
Yay! Cancel yourself, as they say on GB News.
I would set up a fair tax system for everyone. No exceptions. And on that cheerful note, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming
Honour
on.
and privilege.
Thank you, guys.
As always.
Thank you.